Hello and welcome to Souq Pulse. It's a very beautiful Friday on the side of the Niger. This happens to be Lagos. Yes, that very beautiful city you get to read about in those books. This is Lagos, where magic happens, and this is Nigeria, the center of it all. So for those that are still wondering, this is the best place to be. You heard that from me. Now, this is Souq News, where we'll tell you, hey, come, relax, and detox. We are all about positive programming, and to that effect, we will give you nothing but the best. And on Souq Pulse, will tell you this: don't stop talking. And so here we talk, we don't keep quiet. Whatever be the issue, be it business, be it policies, we talk, be it loans, be it difficulties, be it conflict, we talk, be it successes, be it winnings, be it countries, companies, acquiring, acquisition, we talk. Welcome. My name is Chooks, John Rogers Chooks. Today is a very beautiful, breezy Friday, and we will mellow it down and talk on some things that we know can also show up GDP. But how serious are we taking it? Across Africa, like who exactly are we? To what extent do people want to know who we are, or hear us, or hear our stories? So that's what we are going to today. I hope I've not let the cat out of the bag, but hey, you get to meet my guest, a very young, vibrant young man who is out there and doing us proud. And we also get to tell you our topic, then we introduce him. Remember, this is Souq Pulse, where we talk. Don't go anywhere. We're going on a very short break, and when we return, we'll hit the ground running. Souq Pulse will be right back. Welcome back. On this beautiful Friday, we are looking at the entertainment industry. Okay, now let's leave you would start wondering entertainment industry. We're looking at African stories. We're looking at African films, the movies. And we're asking ourselves, how can we get this beyond the shores of Nigeria, Africa? How can we get our stories international? How can we make, you heard me, like you try to read my mind. How can we make that particular amount of money that we get to hear of with the reach of these movies? But the bottom line is, how can we change the narrative? Those wondering, a whole lot come out of the stories we tell. It tells a whole lot about who you are, where you're coming from. You pass a lot of messages, both those said and unsaid, through movies, through stories. So to what extent are we changing the narrative with our stories, with our movies, and to what extent can this show up our GDP? That's what we're talking about today on Souq Pulse. It's kind of mellowed, but hey, those bombshells are still going to be there. So to join us on this episode, on this beautiful Friday, is no other but a friend, an actor, and a filmmaker. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome to Souq Pulse for the first time, Tomiwa Sage Kukoyi. Tomiwa, how are you doing?
Very well. Thank you for having me, man. Thank you so much for having me. Good
You're
afternoon.
welcome. This is your first time. So with you, I'm going to start this routine. Just raise your right hand. Don't mind me, I'm just putting around. Bring your hands down.
If you want me to
You're
raise
welcome.
my two hands, I'll raise it. Should I raise both like this?
All good. It's all good. You're welcome. For those that might not know, well, you'd know. Tomiwa is also a comedian and a very good one at that. So for those movies you've seen him play, hey, behind that is a very good comedian. You're welcome to Souq Pulse. Now let's start and hit it straight.
Thank you.
Now for the
Let's
movies,
go.
the film industry, if we watch American movies, over time they've sold us an El Dorado that America is the land of the blessed, land of angels, that everything is working in America, all because of what we see in their movies. Then if you watch Indian movies, you think that every Indian lady girl can sing, can dance, every single one of them are beautiful because of what you see in the movies. What narrative are we
Yes.
selling with Nigerian and African movies?
Thank you very much for that opening. You talked about how America positions itself in Hollywood as the greatest nation on earth, and how India makes it look as though every woman can sing and dance. And you see what you are basically talking about, that you see in these two countries that you use as examples are national identities. Beyond the movies, there is a cultural identity that a nation is known for. For Nigeria, I like to think, and in most of what you're seeing in our movies, is the Nigerian spirit, is the never die spirit of Nigeria that you see especially in the contemporary movies. And basically that's what you sell. That's what we sell, because it's even beyond the movies now. If you look at our music scene, if you look at the arts, if you look at entertainment, the creative space, basically, what you would notice is that Nigerian creatives have gone all over the world to show and to sell the never dying spirit of Nigerians, which is the fact that, we know they agree. We strive hard to make something out of almost nothing. The Olympics just ended, and if you would see, despite the almost impossible situations that the athletes have had to endure, they've gone ahead to participate, and then it shows what could have happened if actual intentional resources were given to preparation. What display of great talent could have gone into the Olympics for Nigeria. So I think that's what we've been selling basically in our movies.
Okay, thank you very much. We've been selling very individualistic means of that Nigerian spirit that tells you that every single person is working very hard, and the producer of the movies are working very hard. Now we'll see a whole lot of kind of collaboration between producer, actors, post-production, down to distribution, and this happened to be majorly financed by personal funds 90% of the time. Now, this brings us down to, before we get to that particular money part, let's also look at this particular movies. Now, except aside, let's take comedy aside, let's take parodies aside. Now, in cases where we get to see body of work that try to distort history or plays a caricature of someone else's culture and tradition, is there a place where we can take these matters up before we now talk about some other nitty-gritty in filmmaking? When we see this kind of content out there and we just know that, okay, if we look at the history that these people are telling, this is wrong, or this is a fallacy, or no, these are not the kind of people, this is not the way these people are. But we get to see some of those kind of things in our movies or in some content. Are there bodies or places where we can take these kind of issues up?
There are associations, and there are bodies that should look into this. For instance, I mean, if you see a lot of Hollywood movies, especially when it has to do with autobiographies, you see them talking, giving thanks to the Bureau of Archives and all of that. As a matter of fact, in Nigeria, in the past, since Obasanjo's administration, history has not been taught in schools. So there are, and who do you take that to? Which body have we said, okay, be in charge of this? We have the National Archives Institute. We have the national, there are historical bodies in Nigeria. But the crazy thing is, even as a filmmaker sometimes, okay, and I'm not talking about national history, I'm just talking about film, you want to touch on salient, historical issues that literally just happened like 30 years ago, right? You most likely will not find materials. And when you find, they is contestable, because there are many sides to one story. It's very crazy. Even the people who, in the way that the history has been passed down in a lot of times, it's actually oral. And so there are people who come to tell you, oh, this is not how it is done. This is not the true story of it. This is not the true event of it. What you want to also do sometimes is just play in the middle, play safe. But whether there are people to report to, of course, there's a National Arts Council, there's a National History Council, and organizations in Nigeria. But the problem will be, or the snag will be, how forthcoming these organizations will be when you present, these issues to them.
Pragmatic, would they take it up? Now, let's get into the movies ourselves. Let's get into this collaborative work. To what extent do we have collaborations in the industry?
There are collaborations every day, every day. You also know that this sector is an informal sector, and so what it has done is it has given room for everybody who think they can do something to come up with something. Everybody is almost a filmmaker, both those who pass through the tutelage of it in some form of academic institution, and those who just wake up and think that they can, to people who think they have the funds to do it. And you see, it's not just in Nigeria, it's everywhere in the world. You've had, if you go into the history of filmmaking bodies all over the world, you find that collaboration comes from everywhere. Okay, actors now, especially in Nigeria, and we're not exempted from the issues of funding. Okay, the people with great stories that the way they've told the story is shoddy because of funds. They've been lucky to have one or two people, we say, okay, you know what, let's sit down at a table, let's look at what you have, let's break it down, and let's tell the story better. Actors now are jostling as producers because they want to be able to have a larger part of the pie, because also you can continue to work as an actor, and you're not in charge of how much of the story you can tell. And there are stories everywhere. There are stories all around us. So there are actors now who now produce. There are music executives now who now say, okay, you know what, I'll put my money in there. One of the biggest movies of the last 2 years had about 6 huge, collaborators. Wedding Party had, more than 5 collaborators. Gang of Lagos had more, even some of the actors invested in that project. So yes, there are collaborations every other day. There are collaborations between creatives and people with resource and people with money and people with equipment, just to make sure that some of the stories that we now have that we celebrate make it to the light of day.
Now, let's look at distribution a bit before we run into it. Now,
okay,
owing to the fact of money made, how is shared, the percentage from the cinemas down to those distributions that happen online, it brings us to this particular question. Who owns the movie? The executive producer or the distributor?
The distributor cannot lay claim to the movie. I think it's crazy at a point if any distributor lay claims to a story. If what we have, again, what you've seen over time is movie producing companies who have also then decided to say, okay, we'll also distribute our movies. And this is because they can, as a how do I say it, as a superpower, as a power lifter, because they have the funds, because they have a few channels. People have actually, in fact, gone ahead to create distribution channels for themselves, because also when you do a creative work like a film, a motion picture, and you as the producer or as the investor who have put in that money, by the time it goes to distribution and back, you find out that what is coming back to you is nothing, So those who can are going to create a distribution company and also having a movie making company. I don't want to name names, but if you, research will show you that, this movie producing company also has a distribution channel, also has a cinema, So, it's crazy, but I think that gets to happen because there are no great regulations around some of these things to say, see, if you are producing a filmmaking company, be that. You can't, be in the distribution, because then you don't allow for fair play of the market, and that sort of impedes, because now you see the distribution company telling movie makers, especially independent movie makers, who they should star in the movie, what kind of movie they want to distribute, what kind of movie they think the people want to see, and so on and so forth. So it's an anomaly, but we hope, not like we hope. My prayer is that as the year goes by, these things will change, and the right thing will be done.
Okay. Now it's gotten to the point of a prayer. I will join your prayer, but before I get there, let's ask this question. Is it normal where we get to see distribution companies making way, way more than the producers and the owners of the content itself? But we see it happen over and over again. Is it normal?
Again, I mean, I think this is 2B of your question. That was 2-1. 2A and 2B. It's not normal. But you see, it's a business. Some producers are, perhaps you don't understand the dynamics of the contracts of the market. It's what has given birth lately to a lot of producers also going to YouTube, to as a way of, that's a distribution channel for them. That's a way to broadcast their movie, to sell their movie, and then they hit on the views, knowing that whatever they get comes to them, and there's no middleman, there's no distributor. They are now, you see what's happening is that an actor who should literally just get on a movie set and act has now gone ahead to produce a movie. But because of the Herculean task and the politics and the madness of the question you just asked, they say, you know what? I'm testing my popularity. I'm testing my fan base. I'm testing if I'm sellable as a brand. So I have this good story. I'll go ahead and spend my resources, and I'll use YouTube as my main distribution channel, to make my marketing channel, distribution channel, my own cinema in my own little YouTube channel, to make sure that people watch. And when they hit that view, when they become monetized, they are able to make the money, because going through the route of having their movies distributed in a traditional, popular way of cinemas and every other thing doesn't seem to pay them. It doesn't work. So in the case where YouTube also then says, okay, all right, come, we're going to charge you so if it's a movie, I'm guessing you have to then be creative. Some people, open their own live streaming channel just to be able to distribute these movies. But on the long run, I do think that the contract matters. And this is where collaboration also comes in. You go in with people who understand the business of your art. I think that's where most of this problem arises from. People know the art, people know the business of this art. The business of filmmaking is totally different from the art of filmmaking. A distributor is also putting their resources online to distribute this movie. What you just want to, in the case where a distributor spends way more than a producer spends on a particular movie, and they want to also make money because they've invested, what do you think happens?
Okay, that particular question, we'll reserve it for the gods, but just hold on to it. Now, let's look at grossing. Now, box office grossing. The largest movie for now, let's talk about Nigeria, happens to be A Tribe of Judah. It grossed 1.404 billion. 2023. Following that is Battle on Booker Street, 668.4 million. 2022. Omo Ghetto, The Saga, 636.12 million naira. 2020. Then Wedding Party 1 and 2, 452 and 433 million. Now, these are all in naira. So nobody should get scared or jump. These are all in naira. Now, if we add all this, every one of them together, now let's flip the paper and go to the US. Not studio movies. We're not even going close to it. Let's go to independent movies, indie movies. Megs 2, The Trench, 2023, $396 million. Now let's go to The Red Door, which happens to be a horror film. Don't worry, don't scratch your head. $189 million, a horror movie, indie horror movie. Scream 6, $168 million. Also a horror movie. Now, if we take one of this and add every of our highest grossing movie in the last 4 years, this still trump it. Why are we not looking at global distribution? Because this is what makes these movies achieve that. Why are Nigerian movies, no matter how good they are, to the extent that people love them and reach out for them, why are we not looking at global distribution?
The issue of global distribution is also still has to do with collaboration across, the globe. There are some Nigerian movies that are shown that premiered in some cinemas in the UK. I don't know how. Yes, how long they ran for, I don't know. But I mean, we had that. I think gradually these things will begin to come. You must cut off some slack. It is easy to do this comparison. And I also want you to know that the both markets, both even as independent movies that you've quoted from Hollywood, the resources that they have far exceed what we have, in this country. You have mentioned how individuals in this country are literally staking hundreds of millions to make a motion picture on not knowing whether, they'll get anything back. Kudos to Funke Akindele. Most of our films are some of the highest grossing movies in ever, as a matter of fact. And I'm sure that, we never could project the numbers that you've quoted now, in fact, but we've been able to do it. There used to be a theater-going culture in Nigeria, and to have that, and you quoted 2023. Nigeria has been, the world is no longer a recession now, and you still have that kind of numbers. It's a lot. You need to for you, before we start throwing these numbers around, you need to understand also the movie going culture, the per capita spending, per capita earning of the people who want to bring it, because these numbers that you're quoting are human beings. I'd like for you to know that these are human beings, these are paying, these are people, these are transactions, okay, singular or multiple transactions. So these things are in play. I'll tell you, for every of that 1.0 point something billion that you quoted for Tribe of Judah, there are people who got to see that movie without having to pay. I'm sure there are way more people who saw that movie, through other means, piracy, doubling and all of that, who got to see that movie without paying. If we could have, if we could divide these numbers down to a paying transaction figure, we'll probably, get there. And these are the ways of support that the movie industry keep asking for, protection of works, of movie, motion picture works like this, creative works like this, to ensure that the people who make, who invest, get their money back. So you look at Bad Boy. Bad Boy did more than 100 million in the first few days. And I was saying to a friend that the budget for the skits that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence had to do for Instagram, okay, 6 weeks, 8 weeks before Bad Boy premiered, I'm sure is way bigger than, the budget that we've used to shoot some of the biggest films that we've had here. Some of the films that we've had to do magic with didn't have the budget and that was supposed to have for it, right? If you were to table this thing down and tell a Hollywood executive that, oh, this thing that you saw, this movie that you're watching, this is the amount we used to shoot it, they'll say, get out of here. But that's the never dying spirit of Nigeria again, because you're working against everything, but people still want to create. Every filmmaker will tell you is a suicide job, but they don't know why they go back to it. Is that yearn to want to do, to want to tell these stories. And so I'm hoping that in the nearest future, with the help of the government, as you're seeing, Idris Elba was here in in the early part of the year, I think Q1 or Q2, to direct a movie with Ebony Life. You would never have thought that was possible 10 years ago, right? There's a woman king story. And I think that's also where collaboration needs to come in. The woman king story that you saw, Viola Davis, that had Jimmy Odukoya, is a story about a very neighboring culture here. You even had Oyo in it, right? Whether we liked the story, whether it was true to fact of the Dahomey people, is another thing entirely. But look at that movie. That movie had maybe tops, maybe 10 Nigerians in it, in a story that had Oyo, that had Bene, and in that Bene, Yoruba was being spoken. There were great moments or ways for collaboration. You'd have literally a collaboration of Nigeria and, Hollywood on that project that would also help us to cement and tell the better story. So what we need to do, as we are wooing investors for oil, for every other thing, I think the government also needs to give us, same way the aviation sector is giving Airpeace, all the backing it needs to become a national carrier for UK. It's the same way we need to have the federal government say, you see, this is the highest grossing sector in the non-oil, industry that we have, which is the creative industry. Let's see, what do you need? How do we get global collaborations for a movie like House of Ga, for a movie like Olufumi Ransom Kuti, for a lot of movies, for Femi Adebayo, Jagun, which, and then maybe, we can begin to have that, just the way Afrobeat is now beginning to go around the world. And I would love to have you also know that a lot of streaming platforms, okay, despite the fact that Nigeria is where some of these biggest Afrobeat records are coming from, when they show you the streamers, Nigeria is not even in Africa. Nigeria is not even top 3 of this of the people of the continent where they make the biggest amount when it comes to streaming music. But we are the biggest producers because we give Afrobeats back to back a run for their money. So something is inherently wrong somewhere in that chain of that line of that chain of creation to distribution. And I think that is beyond, it's just beyond the players now to make the big El Dorado happen. We need the serious backing of the government.
Now, we are coming to that particular place where you say something is wrong. That particular thing that is wrong is where we're going to poke. But before we poke it, we'll go on a very short break, and Souq Pulse will be right back. Get some water and re-energize, because that wrongness is coming off and on at the part 2 of Souq Pulse today. Don't go anywhere. Souq Pulse will be right back. Welcome back. This is Souq Pulse, and we are live on Souq News. Today we are looking at the entertainment industry, to be specific. The movies, the films, African films, and we are asking ourselves, how can we change the narrative? Narrative in how we are portrayed, narrative in our history, narrative in who we are, narrative in what we sell, narrative in what we are selling and bringing to the market. Can we double it? Can we show up our GDP? And can we make the film producers and owners of the movie themselves be independent making this movie? Not just after making the movie and making you happy, they go home poor. We need to change that entire narrative. And we have no other but our very own friend, Tomiwa Sage. He's been in the house and he's been giving us some good wisdom and insight in this. Before we left, we were looking at why our movie is not going global. He gave us some nuggets of wisdom, but we are still going there because he pointed at some particular wrongs, and those wrongs we want to start poking at right now. Now, Tomiwa, welcome back to Souq Pulse. You're still there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, for foreign movies, when the production houses, no matter the big, no matter the small, when they produce, they have collaborations with cinema chains. Now, this particular cinema chains now have collaborations with other cinema chains in other countries, down to those in Nigeria. We are not mentioning names for those in Nigeria. Now we are asking ourselves, if we take movies from production houses and cinema chains from outside these countries and they are in our own cinemas, because there is already a relationship, why are we finding it difficult for those same chains that take it here in Africa? Why are we finding it difficult for you to now take the same movies you are now making here in Nigeria to tell those that give you theirs to show take ours too, because it's a profit for you here and profit for them for you to show theirs. Why can't we do the same thing? I know that on that side they have government backing. A government come into this. If you're not funding for now, at least get these cinemas that we are doing business also reciprocate. What is stopping us from doing this sort of business? And just harnessing and harvesting from Africa?
I don't think there's anything stopping us from doing this. You see, when we talk about trade, okay, and trade is not just, it goes beyond film, okay. Silverbird is in Ghana, right? And let's be honest. Apart from the online streaming platform where we've been able to access some other movies made on the African continent, when last did you see a South African movie in Nigerian cinema? Have you ever gone to any Nigerian cinema to watch a Ghanaian movie, a Benin Republic movie, an Algerian movie, a Moroccan movie? Don't they make movies? So it's a trade thing. It's a collaboration that needs to happen. It is the same way we were talking about it. And I think we cannot move in as a piece. Okay, I remember the very first time that Nigeria, apart from the Hollywood 007 movie that was shot, this is, when we say the country is moving in a, I don't want to be the one to speak ill of the country, but when you talk about the country retrogressing and things not happening the way you thought they would happen, it tells you a lot about why we are here. For instance, part of a 007 movie way back in the 70s was shot in Kaduna here. Imagine that was sustained. Imagine that we had, that kind of, the government quickly saw, okay, a future in that, gave people the opportunity to be able, imagine if we were intentional about that. From that time, okay, to this present, to that's like over 40 years ago, if I'm correct. Yes, that's over 40 years ago. So imagine a government that has been intentional about, this industry, right? And you have an American crew come all the way from the US to come shoot somewhere in Kaduna. It tells you about what could have happened, what we didn't see, what they saw. Okay, but then we've gone from junta to junta from coup to coup from that time to, to places, to films in Hollywood that they say Lagos, Nigeria, and we know that this is not Lagos, Nigeria. But when they want to show Greece, when they want to show Italy, when they want to show Australia, they actually take a film crew down there. So it's not just about what we suffer in the movie industry. It's not a lone incident. If you ask anybody in every other industry in this country where they are facing, some sort of setback or issues, with being a local champion, as you are rightfully mentioning in this your question, you will see how it's affected every other industry. And also I think for that to happen, we first of all need to conquer Africa first of all. This is the numbers, because this is business, it's trade. If I say, okay, if Miramax, for instance, any other cinema chain in the world or in America say, okay, all right, bring your film. Let's have a partnership. What film are we taking? What story are we telling with this film? Maybe a story of Fela, and I'll tell you, there's a Fela documentary on Netflix that the producers are not even Nigerian. But they came to Nigeria to do a documentary of Fela. The complete works of Fela, if you see it, the complete works of Fela, I don't think is even by a Nigerian. There's a whole book about Fela's life. I don't even think it's by a Nigerian, because of course, if a Nigerian had gone ahead to set out to do that, what support would they have gotten? And you'd be shocked. Somebody in Germany from the German Film Corporation would want to tell a story about illegal migration from Nigeria to Germany. And the government of Germany will give him all the support he needs all through. If it needs for that movie to be shown in all the cinemas in this country, the embassy of the German embassy here will walk that trade all through, and it will happen. You see, so this is how powerful, it is when we talk about what government can do. Let's even say West Africa, because of course, as an actor, you go to some West African countries you never even thought you be in, and you find out that you are known, you are popular. They are watching you. They're watching you because there's piracy that has smuggled some of these DVDs down to those countries, and you are big. Most Americans have a GIF or a meme of Aki and Popo. On Twitter, they use it every other day. On Shade Room in Instagram, an American blog site, even though it's owned by Nigerian in America, but it's basically America. You will see they know Nigeria. They use those GIFs. They use those memes. They know about you. But how are we approaching moving out, breaking out of our cocoon to say, okay, let's go further and see how well we can do in these other countries? And that's where government is really needed.
It is really, really needed, because when it comes to trade, just like you put it, it's everybody's concern. When it comes to productivity, it's everybody's concern. It's not all about oil and gas that the FX is.
If government want to raise the GDP of this country using the creative sector, they will not just leave the creative sector. They won't treat it the way they are doing. It's not by a few BOI grants to a few filmmakers or to filmmakers. No, it's beyond that. There's post-production, there's marketing. Marketing alone we're talking marketing in stupendous numbers. Okay? There's nothing wrong. A Fumilayo Ransom Kuti movie, okay, if well done or given the angle of any other thing, okay, robustly done, kudos to Bonale Austin Peters for what she has done. Okay, that little movie, I'm sure will do well in South Africa because it will be it's relatable. It's relatable in terms of, okay, people know who Fela is. This is the movie about Fela's mother, right? And that's marketing. That's marketing to say, okay, there's a movie about Fela's mother, just so you know the power. And if the filmmaker, or if they will support ab initio, okay, the filmmaker could have included a bit of Fela's life, and that's, you sell that movie from Fela's angle. Tell me among Black Americans that's not relatable. Tell me in UK that's not relatable. Tell me in South Africa that's not relatable. Tell me in Portugal that's not relatable. Tell me in everywhere where Fela is known, a movie about his mother will not sell, will not bring some numbers. But until government become really serious about wanting to raise GDP from film, from music, then we can sit down and have that conversation, and then what needs to be done will be done. Until then, an active Nollywood player is staking their whole life and their whole saving on a piece of work.
Okay. Yeah, let me I still remember when Spectre was premiered, when it was going around the world for the premiere. We were part of that particular crew that worked on the marketing, I for one. And I still remember very well that the High Commissioner, what was left for him to do in that hall that day was to come and clean the chairs. He was there from the beginning till the end, and he was at the door shaking everybody because he knew for once that this was adding to the GDP of his country. That is the pace,
exactly,
and where we need to go. Now, let's look at the side of African movies, Nigerian movies in the Caribbean, Nigerian movies in West African countries, Nigerian movies all around the places. Now, the simple question is this: are we making money off this huge market that is seeing the movies, looking for it, and getting it? Are we really making money off it, or is getting there through some other means and some other people are making the monies?
Of course, it's getting there through some other means. Do you think that everybody that for everybody that is on Netflix or YouTube or any other streaming platform, there's a larger number of people who do not have internet on this continent, and who have a TV? They are lucky to have a TV. They are lucky to have a DVD player. Okay, even though yes, the world has moved on, but We are talking of people who do not even have water, who do not even have access to, potable water in their homes, and there are people who still need to trek miles to get water. There are people who watch the EPL or football matches at Village Square on this continent. Those are audience. Those are people who would pay, no matter how small it is, that will pay for this content. Data, right? From electronic data to internet data, to every other means. So yes, there are a lot of people in Uganda, in Mozambique, in Angola, in Guinea-Bissau. There are people who are literally, who sit down, transcribe, our movies to French and to other languages, and take it elsewhere. There's piracy. Piracy is taking a huge chunk of what the producers could be making. So it's a whole lot for everybody that you think is watching on the platform. If you have 1 million views, there are more numbers of people who would love to see it, who don't have the opportunity to see it, or who will see it through other ways.
Now, talking about piracy, whose responsibility is it to fight piracy? Is it the movie maker, the cinema chain, the distributor, or the government of the country where that pirate is pirating, or the country of origin of that particular creative content? Whose responsibility is it?
First of all, it's the agencies in charge of protection of rights. Okay, is piracy legal? If it is illegal, who is supposed to curtail that illegal act? It is because the illegality does not directly affect government, is why nobody seems to be doing anything about it. It only, on the long run, short-term, long-term, affect, first of all, the movie makers. Is why it is movie makers who are screaming. If for every time that illegal, to drill oil illegally, it affects government oil production daily. It is why every other day, you hear them say government uncovers illegal oil bunkering, illegal oil refinery, illegal oil. It's why the illegal mining, it affects government directly by making them not get the amount they want to get there, right? It is why government send task force, a whole commando, a whole battalion to rout out miners, right? So the moment government again see how, become serious about how they can actually defend filmmaking in this country, okay, do the right thing to boost the GDP, the agency in charge of piracy will do their work. Because what will the filmmaker do? What will the filmmaker do? How will the filmmaker stop piracy? They know who piracy is.
You're talking about the agency in charge of piracy will do their work.
Yeah, there's an agency. There's an agency that's supposed to.
Okay, now let's look at it from this other angle. Could it be, or is it that the government have really not seen it? Let's break it down. Major studios outside this country, for their movies to go and premiere, the ones that are successful make well over 1 point something billion at the box office. That's for major studios. In the last 5 years, that has been a trend.
Yes.
So a single movie is making well over 1.5, 1.2. Some even made well over 2 billion at the box office alone without any other addition. Now, if government should decide, okay, now we are going to take tax, which is normal for them, they are making a tax of well over in billions, cumulatively in trillions. Why is our own government not seeing that? Seeing very well that if we invest here, if we come into this place and play here, the creative industry can give us this much. Why are they not seeing it?
Governor, you need to ask the government. I'm not the government now. You need to ask the government. You need to ask the government.
This is Souq Pulse where we talk. So now we are talking. Why are they not seeing it? If I'm going to ask the government, okay, point me to the direction of the government to ask.
Ask the Minister of Creative Industry. Ask the people at NCAA. I mean, it's not us. We see it, is why we are in it. because I studied this. I studied theater arts, what is government saying? Let's be honest. Okay, in the last 8 years, maybe you have the telecommunications. They've given support. MTN had Nitel's infrastructure to use when they first came. There are quite a number of people who have, government give consensus. Okay, all right, we'll take waivers of this. We'll give you tasks free of that. What have they given? What? And yes, the grants are good, but when you give grant to shoot a movie and the other chains, the other things involved are still not taken care of, who sees it? How? Where? With who?
Should I put those particular questions as jam questions or attempt any of this? Are they selective? But before we get to that particular bit, I want to say thank you very much. Now, before I let you go, I want to ask you this particular question. What exactly is the motivation? What is motivating the filmmaker to keep going on, irrespective of the odds?
Passion. It's just passion. Look at film, and I want you to be very honest, okay? Look at the top filmmakers that you know. Kunle Afolayan, Bolale Austin Peters, Funke Akindele, Film One. Who is that again? Who is there? Yeah, Biola Labi. These are the big names that you keep hearing every other day. But in this ecosystem, there are thousands and thousands of people, from sound engineers to set decorators to actors to gaffers to the DOP guys. People really just love the arts of creation. Their art to want to not everybody will be a doctor, not everybody will be anything. And we're the largest film producing country in Africa. That help need to come. There are a lot of filmmakers who go bankrupt after making a movie, but they still go back because they just feel like, okay, at this, maybe this second time, it will be better. And so we are here.
Very much. It's been my pleasure having you on Souq Pulse. For every one of us that have been part of this production today, I say thank you very much, Tomiwa, for breezing in and being part of Souq Pulse for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, to everyone that has been part of this beautiful program for today, just know this. Souq Pulse will talk about not just creativity, productivity. We say Africa should be counted. We say Africa should come to the market not just as buyers, but as sellers. And for us to be there and play that role, we need to get products, produce product. So be it creative works, those are products. Now, do we see them as products? This is where the issue is. So the government of Africa and African countries need to come together and really think and ask ourselves, how much is the film industry contributing to the GDP of Western nations? Look at those figures. How much is the film industry contributing to the GDP of Asian nations? Look at those figures. Then also ask yourself, to what extent are these industries changing or shaping the narrative and image of these nations? These are things we are losing, and we are seriously losing out at it. So we need to ask ourselves these particular questions and wake up, because that is where we are right now. We need to wake up. We will be able to show up our GDP, that is for sure. We will be able to get people working, because that is a whole lot of change. And people need to get these jobs done. We can't stop talking. The same thing I tell you out there. Don't keep quiet. Wherever we see the productivity, we'll show it up and we'll talk about it. This is Souq Pulse, and we need to get counted without being quiet. My name is Chooks, John Rogers Chooks. We'll do this again on Monday. Have yourself a very beautiful weekend. And remember, be your brother's keeper. And don't be quiet. Bye.